Welcome back, all you space lovers. It's craziness of the internet here, and we are back again with another informational video in EVE Online. Now today in this video, you guys, we will be discussing and showing you the 4 basic playstyles in PvP in EVE Online. Yes, there is more playstyles that can be activated, but these are the most basic and most concurrent playstyles in PvP that you will come across. Now when it comes to teaching you guys these 4 basic playstyles, it does sometimes take a lot of information, and I do wish that I could make these videos shorter, but sometimes I do have to make them into 1 or 2 parts, and today this is the second part of the video. If you did miss the first part, do go ahead and check that in the description below. Right now, let's get into these ones. In the second video here, the next playstyle that we will be discussing is the Speed Kiter. Now this ship here does come from the Caldari faction, and it will teach you to understand that speed is your tank and how to understand your enemy's velocity to apply your disruptor and to lock down your enemy opponents with your speed, and to understand that when you are being out applied versus speed that you should warp off the field, and to understand how to lock down your enemy brawlers and less velocity opponents with your tracking disruptors. And in the final basic playstyle that you will come across in EVE Online, this is Capacitor Warfare style. Now this is the Tristan from the Galente Federation. This playstyle of a ship will teach you as a player to be able to understand cap management and control, and to understand what enemy ships on the battlefield and in the area do need capacitor, and what style of modules are heavily needed for capacitor as well. And reminding ourselves, you guys, that in EVE Online the most powerful things in the game is speed and EWAR. So once you understand to utilize the power of a utility EWAR brawling ship in EVE Online, they are very powerful. Now you just have to remember to use them correctly. Alright, let's get into it. If you are enjoying the content, please do like and subscribe, as this is for the next generation of EVE Online players. And if you already are a long-term EVE player and already skilled in PvP and have the basic knowledge that is needed to get out there and enjoy some roams, then this type of video is not for you. But you could go ahead and check out some of my solo PvP roaming videos in the description down below. I do appreciate all of the support that has come to the channel so far, and let's continue to grow it together. Alright you guys, now that you have seen what it is like to train yourself in mid-range control scram kiting, and what it is like to train yourself to be able to understand the length of time that a buffer style ship will last, and how to apply by manually piloting on the screen better hits and tracking for your weapon systems. But now we're going to get into what is called a kiter. Now in EVE Online, a kiter, you guys, is a specific style of ship that will utilize long range targeting and long range application from its weapon systems, and usually will be a lighter base tank, as they have used most of their low slots and most of their rig slots to increase their agility and speed. Thus, when you are using this style of a ship, or most kiters in general, even if they do have the ability to rep themselves lightly, their speed is their tank. So here in this training ship, you guys, we have a stable speed kiter. Now this thing has above average speed, and it does have the ability right here to use a tracking disruptor 1 on your opponent. Now if you guys do not know, any of the heavy brawlers and any of the Amar ships will suffer tremendously from a tracking disruptor, and how you do that is the Amar will suffer the most by disrupting their tracking utility. Now you can mess with most Amar style weapon systems by using the tracking disruptor 1 to mess with the speed of the tracking of their weapon systems, or you can use the optimal range disruption script, which will reduce the length and range that the heavy close range brawlers do need and have, making it even harder for them to be viable to apply their DPS towards you. As remember, you guys, the most heaviest DPS ships in the game have to get into a decent range with you to be able to apply. So in this ship right here, over the years, as we did design all of these builds to be training vessels, but yes, you guys can see, and I'm sure some of you watching this video have seen or used some of these vessels that we did create back in the day to help earlier based factional warfare players and earlier based players in the game to freely roll around and to understand what it is like to utilize some of the playstyles in PvP in EVE Online. So remember, you guys, that you do want to utilize speed when teaching yourself this. Now what you have to teach yourself when you are a kiter is you have to start teaching yourself in the game what style of ships are more close up and brawl range, and what style of ships are more mid range and close range, and you have to teach yourself to be able to position when landing on brawling destroyers or making the brawling destroyer land to you. Make sure that you have already landed at your perfect distance of 18 to 20 kilometers. That way you can utilize your agility and speed and snag them right away. Also remember, you guys, that when you are using kiting vessels, especially ones that have the ability to lock out players completely like this one does right here, you do have to remember and remind yourself that you are very weak, and if you don't utilize your tracking disruptor and your speed to apply your light missile launcher damage, and they can apply to you, then you do have to warp off the field, or if they are catching up to you as they are fast as well, then again warp off and come back and reset to engage the enemy. There is no right or wrong for how many times you warp away and come back. If you warp away and that guy calls out GF in local, that's his fault for believing that the fight was over. Fight is never over until one opponent is defeated or you guys mutually agree good fight. So we're going to show you guys what it is like to make sure to control your ranges when the target lands on you, and to make sure to use your tracking disruptor to lock down the targets. So we'll give you guys a good example of that right now. Guys, now when you are teaching yourself to be a kiter, not a scram kiter, but a full distance lockdown style player, utilizing very low tank but utilizing heavy speed aspect in the game, you do understand that you do want to always be away from your enemy, and that the proper way to lock your opponent down should look like this. So if you do look at my warp disruptor, you can see that I can lock them down at around 29 to 30 kilometers, and 24 kilometers will be my minimum. So if I just go ahead and set my orbit like this with my speed activated, you guys can see that we will lock down our opponent, and then there will be nothing that they can do, as I am using a disruption script here. With the engine on at 20 kilometers, you should be a few kilometers over what you need. Exactly 20 kilometers with an orbit of an MWD. It does sustain you just enough within the range of your disruptor, but do keep in mind that you do have to manually pilot on the screen if your opponent is trying to escape, as this will not lock down a micro warp drive engine, but will give you the advantage over an afterburner, as if you are able to lock a brawler down, then there is pretty much nothing that they can do. Now remember, you guys, you want to use the tracking disruptor against things like artillery and lasers, and you do want to use the range script right here against things such as blasters and mid-long range brawlers when using laser systems or mid-mentor weapons as well. I'm going to show you guys what I mean by that right now. So right now you guys can see that my enemy's damage is applying, but right here I'm going to switch to my optimal range script now, you guys, and you will see that I'm about to reduce her range by over 30%. Now that it is applied, you can see that she is missing, so do take that into account if you are using these EWAR style weapon systems against any mid and close range brawler as well. Make sure to switch your scripts properly and utilize them to what you need. So you can see the moment that I applied my range script, reducing the brawler's range under 30% is a heavy hit towards them, as now they are having incredible trouble tracking me. Now that you guys see the utility and the base of understanding a kiter and understanding how to lock down specifically afterburner brawlers and mid-range control ships, even if they do have a micro warp drive engine, your agility and setup speed, because you are utilizing most of the things that will not slow down your mass, you should have a good chance to be able to pull away from them and get away in the end. But in this next example right here, I want you to see and understand a tracking disruptor and utilizing the range disruption script, whether they are null ammunition when most small weapon systems without a range bonus, or a rig to increase its range. It usually will have a range of around 7.5 to 8,000 meters, i.e. kilometers. So if you understand specifically how you can completely mess up and lock down specific brawlers. So here we're going to show you guys how the range script does utilize and lock out most mid-range and control brawlers. Alright, so once we get into brawl range here, you guys, you can see that she is applying to me with her neutron blasters. And if I just go ahead right here at the max range for brawlers, which is always around 3,500, 7,500 if they are using the long range ammunition, but with their heavy base DPS ammunition, you can see that the moment you apply the range script, they do begin to miss. So right here you can see that now her range range is reduced by 30% plus, which is a huge amount for any brawler and will cause them extreme problems in the fight. So do take that into account and understand, you guys, the EWAR factors and how to fully utilize the kite style play. Now remember, this is a long range style play. Never be up close. That you should always be at your max range of 20 kilometers with all of your modules activated, keeping in mind and noting that if your opponents are trying to escape, that you must manually pilot on the screen to keep after them and to apply your warp disruptor so that they do not get away. And taking into note, you guys, that in this kiting training ship you are 100% stable, so there is nothing that you have to do or worry about when it comes to your cap. The only thing you have to rely on is always nullifying your opponent's weapon system and making sure that you continuously lock them down with your warp disruptor so that you can apply your volleys of light missile. All right, you guys, now that you understand and see firsthand what it is like to get into the basics and understanding and teaching yourself kiting and understanding to yourself and reminding always that this is not about winning or losing. Yes, these training ships are powerful in their own selection and they can win PvP fights 1 versus 1s and 2 versus 2s and 2 versus 1s, but your main goal here is to remind yourself that you are teaching yourself how to PvP and how to utilize these playstyles the best, so that when you understand them you can upgrade to a more powerful ship and better modules. So now that you understand the 3 most basic playstyles in the game and how to utilize alongside those playstyles the EWAR factors and how to apply some EWAR along the way, we are going to get into another style of EVE Online's PvP and a way that you can pressure your opponent. Let's get into that right now. Right here, you guys, we have the Nuding Tristan. Now this one right here is going to teach you that sometimes your opponents do need capacitor for their weapon systems, and especially if they have you pinned down, you can utilize the power of your 3 small gremlin compact energy neutralizers and nude out your enemy's capacitor so that you are able to turn off their warp scrambler and their web or their warp disruptor and possibly warp off and get away. Now this core design is going to teach you guys to not be afraid to be jumping on your opponent, as you want to be the aggressor in this one, meaning you want to get first strike, as you want your neutralizers to apply as fast as possible, draining as much capacitor from them before they are able to use it. Now this core design is going to teach you guys to not be afraid to be jumping on your opponent, as you want to be the aggressor in this one, meaning you want to get first strike, as you want your neutralizers to apply as fast as possible, draining as much capacitor from them before they are able to use it. Once you teach yourselves that in this design your mentality should be super aggressive and get on them as fast as possible, then you need to understand that at the beginning of the interaction of combat you want to hit them incredibly hard with your nuding power, and then you want to, on the second round, start cycling your neutralizer so that you can start managing your capacitor. Now the reason why I have a small ancillary armor repairer on this one is not for the longevity of wanting to survive, as most players in the game are used to using a small ancillary armor repairer, but you guys, I will let you know this now, that the most powerful Nuding Tristans do not rely on ancillary armor repairers, they rely on the 400 plate. So I am going to show you guys right now what it is like to cycle your neutralizers and to understand that the small ancillary armor repairer, yes, it does allow you to heal yourself and repair your ship, but its main goal here is to teach you that when you are under pressure, whether it's from damage of your enemy or pressure from yourself to your capacitor, that you do have to start paying attention and utilize your understanding of capacitor warfare. Thus you have to time your injections properly and manage your modules correctly. Alright, you guys, so you can see that in this ship you do want to start teaching yourself cap management, and yes, it is very strong against any of the vessels that rely on capacitor, whether it is for an active build or a high DPS build, and those weapon systems rely on capacitor. It does not matter which one it is, but as long as you're able to understand which ships use these styles of gameplay and which ones you need to start applying heavily to, then you can start to whittle them down and start to win some fights. Now remember, you guys, why you have the ancillary armor repair on here is to teach yourself how to get better cap management. And do not forget that you can overheat your modules for a faster cycle. But when you are these ships, you guys, you can see that when you are under pressure, you do want to utilize all of your neutralizers right away. As you can see on the second cycle, it does start to whittle you down, and usually you would be taking some damage right here. So this is usually what it would look like, and at this moment it would be best to start cycling your neutralizers until you see that you have completely nuded out your enemy opponent, and you'll see that their modules right there do deactivate. So now I know that I do have my opponent pinned down, and my only goal here now is to make sure that I keep my cap management under control. Now if this player was to launch drones on me and keep attacking me, this is where I would have to utilize my ancillary armor repairer and turn it on and off in different cycles, and understanding that if I do use my armor repairer, then I do need to turn off one of my newts or cycle it on and off like that, just to make sure that I don't cap myself out. Alright, so now that you guys have seen these 4 basic training style and core designs of PvP in EVE Online, do make sure that you guys do get out there and try and test them out on your own. And remember, you guys, that when you are using these vessels and these core designs, that yes, they are powerful, and yes, some of them over the years have become what you would call basic T1 meta, which in itself is hilarious in my eyes. Alright, you guys, do remember to remind yourself that it is not about winning or losing in these ships. Yes, you can win, but the main goal here is to get out there and teach yourself some basic understanding of PvP in EVE Online. I hope you guys are all staying safe out there. God bless, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.